okay, hang on, I've got to confirm that this is being recorded. So are the plaintiffs ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Are the defendants, or is the defendant ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. And obviously, CBA is recording this. I'm assuming everybody is clear on that. So is there anyone in the gallery other than the scoring panelists? I'm not seeing anyone. Okay. Ms. Rogers, please let me know if somebody is jumping in who is not a coach for one of these teams and is joining the gallery. For the team members, please remember there will be no recesses unless you have an emergency that needs to be addressed. You don't have to tell me what it is, but it needs to be something personal. Okay. Each scoring panelist has told us that they don't have any reason to be biased at this point. Any disputes arising out of this competition must be reported in accordance with the competition rules. Your compliance with time requirements will be considered as part of the performance standards that you will be graded on by the panelists. All right. As the judge, I preside, but I do not score you. However, the scoring panelists with us today will be scoring you on your compliance with time. So I'm guessing no coach or team member is on the screen right now, other than the participants. Is that correct? Looks like it. Okay. Can I have the plaintiffs introduce themselves and their witnesses, please?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Mallory Camberos, and on behalf of my client, Dakota Weirs, today I will be presenting the defense's preliminary matters and conducting the direct examination of Dr. Casey Rogers and the cross-examination of Dr. Devin Williams. Permission for my fellow counsel to introduce themselves.
Permission will be granted in a moment. Can I ask you, please, ma'am, to change the lighting behind you? I think there's a window behind you that makes it very difficult to see you. This would not be in a normal courtroom, but we can't really see you very well.
Of course, give me one moment.
Thank you, ma'am. And I will say to everybody, I'm an old judge. I say sir and ma'am. I do not wish to offend anyone. If I use an inappropriate pronoun for you, please forgive me. We don't have pronouns listed on the identifiers today, and I apologize in advance. I don't wish to cause any offense to anyone. And as soon as as Mallory Camberos is back with us, that team needs to introduce yourselves, please.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Lauren Hayes, and on behalf of my client, Dakota Weirs, today I will be presenting the plaintiff's closing statement and conducting the direct examination of Carson Durst and the cross-examination of Skylar Weirs.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Rick Lemon, and on behalf of my client, Dakota Weirs, today I will be presenting the plaintiff's opening and conducting the direct examination of Dakota Weirs and the cross-examination of Blake Doncourt. Permission from my fellow counsel / our witnesses to introduce themselves.
Permission granted.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Mishti Jukar, and I am Dr. Casey Rogers.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. I'm Ellie Rasmussen, and I will be Carson Durst.
So I can barely hear the person who's speaking. Please speak up.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. I am Ellie Rasmussen. I will be Carson Durst.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Abigail Couillard. I'm Dakota Weirs today.
Thank you. Is that the entirety of the Daffodil team?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Can I please have the defense introduce yourselves, please?
Good morning, Your Honor, members of the Jersey and opposing counsel. My name is Kara Lyons, and me and my co-counsel are defending Lush Fertilizer. So I will be doing the direct examination for Dr. Devin Williams and the cross-examination for Carson Durst. Permission to allow the rest of my co-counsel to introduce themselves.
Granted.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, opposing counsel. My name is Laura Polito, and I will be leading the cross for Miss Dakota Weirs and the direct for Skylar Weirs.
Good morning, Your Honor, fellow opposing counsel and jury. I am doing the opening statement, crossing Casey Rogers and directing Blake Doncourt. Permission for our witnesses to introduce themselves.
Granted.
Hello, my name is Abby Hillary, and I am Blake Doncourt.
Hello, my name is Amelia Orton, and I am Dr. Devin Williams.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Lexi Williamson, and I'm Skylar Weirs.
All right. Can I have all of the team members turn your cameras on, please? And ask you to raise your right hand for me, please, so that I can actually see your right hand. I still need a couple of cameras on, please. Okay, I'm still looking for a couple of cameras. Okay, that includes the timekeeper, sorry. Just wanted to make sure you guys are hearing me. So team members, do you promise that the presentation that you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and the rules of the mock trial competition? You can just shake your head affirmatively. Okay, thank you. With respect to the witnesses, please keep your hands raised. The rest of you can put your hands down. Witnesses, do you promise that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to your witness statements, that you will not add material facts or opinions which are not contained in the case problem, and that you will follow the rules and procedures of the mock trial competition? Thank you all. You can put your hands down now. Okay. I need to swear in the scoring panelists, sorry. Since we don't have any gallery members, can I get the scoring panelists to turn on your cameras? Ms. Coombe is the only one I can't see. Thank you, ma'am. Can you raise your right hand for me, please? Do you promise to adjudicate the mock trial competition as fairly and objectively as possible in accordance with the facts, procedures, and rules of the mock trial competition?
I do. I do.
Thank you. All right. I think we are ready to proceed. If the plaintiffs are ready to present their opening statement.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
You are here today because a young woman's life was ruined by Lush Fertilizer and its negligent and greedy employees. Dakota Weirs was a promising young woman and a respected member of her community with a bright future in music, even being invited to Juilliard, but all of that was stripped away from her when she worked with Lush Fertilizer. While she may have not worn long-sleeve clothes during the middle of summer, Lush Fertilizer is the only one at fault. As you will hear today, Dakota weighed the consequences of using Lush Fertilizer for herself and made her choice. If Lush Fertilizer notified her of the risk of getting cancer, undoubtedly she would have made a different choice. Secondly, you are about to hear about a researcher oppressed by the very company he was serving simply for doing his job. Carson Durst was previously a member of the research and development team who rose quickly through the ranks of Lush Fertilizer. Yet as soon as he called out Drufo for the poison that it is, he was not only ignored but silenced.
We lost audio. Mr. Lemon. Not sure why. Okay, you froze as well. Do you want to try speaking and moving?
Can you hear me now?
Now we can.
Okay,
Great.
Where did I leave off?
That's so you were talking about Drufo or Drufo.
Yes, thank you. Carson Durst was previously a member of the research and development team who rose quickly through the ranks of Lush Fertilizer. Yet as soon as he called out Drufo for the poison that he was not only ignored but silenced. His performance reports took a massive dip, and when he tried to tell the CEO of the company face-to-face of his blatant oppression, he was blown off so the CEO could deal with irrelevant personal matters. Finally, we have Dr. Rogers, an experienced and professional expert in matters relating to this case, who conducted her own research, independent of the financial power and potential bias of Lush Fertilizer, and found that groups exposed to Drufo were 10 times as likely to be diagnosed with cancer than the average man. Lake Doncourt is a greedy and incompetent man who seeks only to gain money and reputation for his company. As you will see today, he ignored or missed a serious error in his product's warning. When he was given the option, he chose not to take Drufo because of the strain it would put on his own wallet, and he attempted to sue Carson Durst after he took his underappreciated expertise elsewhere. Skylar Weirs is an unqualified expert witness who's letting personal matters and motivation of bias blind her to the truth. She has only written one article relating Drufo. Her research is entirely based off other articles and sources, who, as far as she can tell, could be just as underqualified as she is. She also stubbornly insists Drufo is not carcinogenic, despite having no intimate knowledge of medicine, chemistry, toxicology, or anything else related. And Dr. Devin Williams is the textbook definition of a hired gun. He was brought only into this case because of the bias from his position in Lush Fertilizer. While undoubtedly an expert, he has no intention to use this expertise because of the gain he would get from promoting the false narrative that Drufo is not carcinogenic. Chiefly, the defendant's side is completely based on Drufo not possessing carcinogenic properties. But this is a civil case. We are using the rule of preponderance of evidence, meaning that the plaintiff's burden of proof is completely fulfilled when it has over a 50% probability that our side is true, which we have achieved, or which we will achieve today. In conclusion, siding with Lush would not only be ridiculous, but dangerous for everyone else that they could still hurt with their cancer-causing product. That's all, Your Honor.
All right. Does the defense have an opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
When you wake up on a nice summer morning here in beautiful Colorado, you step outside and smell the crisp morning air. You feel the sun's warmth rising on your skin and smell the green, beautiful grass. Lush Fertilizer wants every morning to be like this. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Addison Yakubovich. I'm here with my fellow attorneys, Kara Lyons and Laura Polito. We represent Lush Fertilizer today. You've heard from the plaintiffs' attorneys what they tell you this case is about. Now we are going to give you the full story. This case is about a company who followed the rules and a person who did not. You will hear today that the facts that Lush did not cause the plaintiff cancer, that the plaintiff has to prove what you will see during this trial, the plaintiff cannot meet her burden. Lush does its best to make every lawn a beautiful oasis. They do this by focusing on safety. You'll hear today that safety is not only part of the manufacturing process, but also involves how fertilizers are used. This includes how it was used by the plaintiff, and you will hear how the important safety is for Lush. While Lush makes safety important, the plaintiff admits to disregarding safety precautions. Lush has a product that does contain chemicals, such as nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, iron, and Drufo. These are chemicals you'll see in your everyday life. Lush also lists safety recommendations on all their products. The plaintiff was aware of these recommendations and admits he did not follow them. Now, the focus is on the plaintiff's case is Drufo. Drufo is simply a chemical designed to keep nitrates out of streams and lakes and is a bonding supplement for the Lush products. This chemical is designed to protect the planet and not create harm. The plaintiff must prove Lush knew or should have known that Drufo causes non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, a claim the science does not support. The plaintiff also must prove that Lush hid or willingly ignored the potential dangers. Again, the plaintiff will not be able to prove these claims. Members of the jury, Lush sympathizes with the plaintiff and feels for her, but Lush also wants her condition to improve. And as you'll hear from the evidence today, that her condition is improving. However, the plaintiff has also been responsible for wearing protective gear and not wearing a respirator while the fertilizer for several years. The negligence of the plaintiff should not be a punishment for the company who provided all safety measures needed. Members of the jury, this case is simple. This case is about someone following the rules. With the evidence provided, the witness brought from both sides, you will see that the plaintiff is trying to paint Lush in a negative light for monetary gain. You will hear from the Lush's witnesses that Lush used all the information to determine how their product should be used and what was right for their customers, and how they looked at all the information to determine the necessary requirements. Today, you will hear from Skylar Weirs, the plaintiff's own twin, that he cannot support the plaintiff in this lawsuit because of the extensive research that he did as an investigative journalist. And he found that Lush fertilizer is safe. You will also hear from Dr. Devin Williams, who has been with Lush for over a decade and is a leader of the toxicology research program. Dr. Williams will explain how biological systems respond to environmental interventions and inorganic compounds in agriculture differently. Through his research, he was able to test and determine the effects of a chemical agent and determine that the levels are safe for humans. That includes Drufo. Drufo is also an industry-leading product made by an environmentally aware company. It is cost-effective and delivers what it promises. The evidence will show that Lush does not put profits over safety. Lush follows all the laws and regulations, but Lush cannot force people to follow its safety recommendations and should not be responsible for when people admit to not following their recommendations. Ladies and gentlemen of the plaintiff has the burden of proving her case today. It is the obligation to hold her burden and not let sympathy for her condition sway your decision or how you view evidence. The evidence will show that the plaintiff cannot prove Drufo causes non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. The evidence will show that Lush followed all the required procedures and regulations, something the plaintiff did not do. At this time, at the end of the trial, you will be presented all the evidence and will hear the witness from all the witnesses. And we are confident that you will reach the verdict that is based on evidence. Lush did not cause a plaintiff illness. Please follow the evidence in favor of defense. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the plaintiffs like to call your first witness, please? And I'll just remind the witness that you've been sworn. Whenever you're ready.
Yes, Your Honor, we would like to call Dr. Casey Rogers to the stand.
Dr. Rogers?
Hello, Dr. Rogers. Can you please state your first and last name for the court, spelling the latter for the record?
Dr. Casey Rogers, Rogers.
And what is your current occupation, Dr. Rogers?
I am currently a professor at the University of California, Berkeley.
And what classes do you teach?
I teach courses in horticultural entomology and herbicide selectivity and action.
And what degrees do you currently hold?
I currently hold a PhD in agriculture and entomology from the University of California, Berkeley, and a Bachelor of Science in agriculture and chemistry from Colorado State University.
Did you pursue any other forms of education before your precision at UC Berkeley?
Before my precision at UC Berkeley, I was a research analyst for a multinational chemical company.
And what was your main area of study for this research?
I studied the effect of chemicals on the body.
And what is the formal name for this field?
Toxicology.
Do you have knowledge of toxicology beyond what an average person might have?
Yes, I do.
Has this given you any experience in expert advisory?
Yes, it has.
Have you published any works that can provide insight into your qualifications?
I have. I published a review on Drufa's effects on the body in 2019.
Your Honor, do you have a clean and unmarked copy of Exhibits 6 and 7 available to you?
I do.
Doctor, do you have a clean and unmarked copy of Exhibits 6 and 7 available to you?
Yes, I do.
Dr. Rogers, could you please identify what Exhibits 6 and 7 are?
Exhibit 6 is a copy of my curriculum vitae, and Exhibit 7 is a copy of my published research.
Do you have the ability to change these documents?
Yes.
Are these documents updated?
Yes, they are.
Are these documents accurate?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, we offer Exhibit 6 and 7 into evidence as the authenticity of these documents have been stipulated.
So admitted.
Your Honor, pursuant to Rule 702, at this time, I tender this witness as an expert in the fields of horticulture, entomology, and toxicology.
Counsel for the defense? If somebody's trying to speak, you're muted. I can't see anyone or hear anyone. Counsel for the defense, please. Is there any objection? Still
No
can't see.
objection.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, you may proceed. So recognized as an expert.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Rogers, what initially brought Drufo to your attention?
Drufa was rushed to the market with insufficient studies on its safety, and I was concerned for consumer use of Drufa.
And what was your impression of how the scientific community was reacting to Drufo?
There have been multiple negative reports on Drufa in the scientific community.
And what were some of those negative reports?
These negative reports include it being found carcinogenic in rats.
And why exactly did you focus on Drufo instead of, say, another fertilizer?
Because of these multiple negative reports and its link to carcinogenicity, and because it was, as I said before, rushed to the market, unlike the other chemicals currently on the market.
And how did you act on this perceived lack of safety?
I conducted a study of my own.
Could you please give a brief explanation of this study?
Yes, my study had 3 groups. One group was never exposed to Drufo. The second group was exposed to Drufo on occasion, and the third group was consistently exposed to Drufo.
Now, what exactly did you conclude?
I concluded that the group consistently exposed to Drufo was 10 times more likely to develop health conditions, including cancer, after being exposed to Drufo, and the second group, which was exposed on occasion, is 5 times more likely to develop these health conditions.
Did you come to any conclusion on the efficacy of masks?
No, I did not, as laborers are not typically provided with masks.
To the best of your knowledge, did the plaintiff wear a mask?
No.
Did these other workers in the study typically wear a mask?
No, they did not.
So in your expert opinion, was Dakota's lack of protection similar to the other reasonable agricultural workers in your study?
Yes, it was.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
All right, cross-examination.
Good morning, Ms. Rogers. Can you please refresh the jury's minds on why you were called as an expert witness today?
I was called as an expert witness today to testify on behalf of Dakota Weirs in relation to her being exposed to Drufo as a link to its carcinogenicity.
Can you please refresh the jury's mind on your degrees that you place?
I hold a PhD in agriculture and chemistry, or agriculture and entomology from the University of California, Berkeley, and a Bachelor of Science in agriculture and chemistry from Colorado State University.
And you do not have a medical degree, is that correct?
No, I do not have a medical degree.
So being an expert witness has no medical basis in this case, correct?
As an expert witness, I have no medical basis in this case.
You conducted a study linking Drufo to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, correct?
Yes, I conducted a study linking Drufo as a cause of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
And you never published this in a scientific journal, is that correct?
No.
And can you please explain your non-peer-reviewed study then?
Yes, as I said before, my study included 2 exposure groups, which I compared to the group that was never exposed to Drufo, and I found a direct correlation with group Drufo and carcinogenicity.
Did you test each of your group's previous health conditions?
No, I did not.
And is this possible to assume that the previous health conditions could make them more susceptible to getting ill?
I was more focused on them being exposed to Drufo despite their previous health conditions and how Drufo impacted their current health conditions and led to increased health risks.
And is it possible that they were more susceptible to getting ill?
It is possible, though I do not think it is possible, though I do not think that, I think I focused on Drufo impacting their current health conditions. And since I had a wide variety of test subjects, I think that it negated that.
So yes, it was possible.
Yes, it was possible.
And the groups exposed to Drufo, you said you were found higher in the incidences of cancer, correct?
Yes, the groups exposed to Drufo had a higher risk of getting cancer.
Just to clarify, many of those individuals from the exposed groups were farm laborers, correct?
Yes, they were, as Dakota was also worked with fertilizers.
And isn't it possible that these farm workers were exposed to a plethora of chemicals and pesticides that presupposed them to be more susceptible to cancer?
Yes, it is possible, though, since I compared it with group 2 and group 1, we were mainly focused on Drufo.
But people who were previously exposed to pesticides and other chemicals were more likely to get ill, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Now, I would like to ask you about something in your statement. You said, and I quote, to reduce risks of absorption in the skin, anyone who worked with Drufo should wear long sleeves, long pants, and avoid their skin coming into contact with chemicals. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And you also stated, most importantly, these working with aerolized versions of the product who might breathe the chemicals should wear a medical grade protective mask which covers their mouth and nose. Isn't that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And is it true that those are also the safety precautions on Lush fertilizer?
It is recommended, though I think it is important to properly warn, as I advise chemical companies on those precautions, I think it's important to properly warn the consumer of possible effects and implement those safety precautions.
But was already on all their products labels. Isn't that correct?
The wearing of safety precautions such as that were recommended by Lush on their fertilizers.
And during your study, did you see all of the Lush fertilizer labels?
During my study, I did take into account Lush's fertilizer.
And when you had your test subjects use this fertilizer, did you have them listen to those safety recommendations?
No, like I said, laborers are not typically required with those safety, with masks and those safety precautions.
But did you use the safety precautions that were required on the product when testing if it could cause cancer?
No, I did not include those in my study.
So during your statement, you also said the results of your study were inconclusive. Isn't that correct?
Yes, I had insufficient time, so the results of my study were inconclusive and only resulted in correlation between DRUFO and carcinogenicity.
So your testing was inconclusive?
Yes, but it did provide a correlation between DRUFO and carcinogenicity.
But did you have a clear answer that it did or did not?
I did not have a 100% clear answer.
So to summarize, your study was inconclusive, hence why you never published it into a scientific or medical journal, correct?
My study was conclusive in the sense that it was conclusive in the sense that it found a correlation between DRUFO and it being carcinogenic. No, it did not 100% confirm that DRUFO causes cancer.
So there was no yes that it caused cancer?
No,
Objection, Your Honor, badgering the witness.
I'm just asking for clarification. I am not trying to badger.
I'm going to overrule the objection, but we're close to the line, counsel. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. There was no further questions.
All right. Redirect.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Rogers, is it true that the various other workers in your studies did not wear a mask?
No, they did not.
Was it common for them to not wear a mask?
Yes, it was. Laborers don't typically wear masks, which is why recommendations are made specifically and warnings are specifically instated.
In your expert opinion, were these people reasonable?
Yes, they were.
So in your reasonable expert opinion, these people were not wearing masks, correct?
No, they were not.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. I'm assuming there's no further cross. So, doctor, you can stand down. Do you want to call your next witness, please?
Yes, Your Honor. We call Carson Durst to the stand.
Carson, I'm just reminding you that you are still under oath. Go ahead, counsel. And you're muted, Ms. Hayes.
Sorry.
Great.
Okay. Could you please state your full legal name and spell the last for the record?
Carson Durst, D-U-R-S-T.
Mr. Durst, why are you here today?
I'm here to testify the truth about Blank Doncourt and his company, Lush Fertilizer.
What is the nature of your relationship with the defendant, Blake Doncourt?
When I was younger, I was best friends with Charles Doncourt, Blake's son. We played soccer with each other on a local traveling team, and Charles and I became inseparable friends through that. I was quite close with his family.
Okay. So, how did your career begin?
I hadn't really planned on working at Lush. Shortly before graduation, I still hadn't found a job despite all my searching. I began to worry about this, and I talked to Charles about it. He told me that his father's company, Lush Fertilizer, was hiring interns for the summer. Shortly after, I put in my application, and I was eventually hired with the research and development team.
Okay. When did you begin your employment with Lush Fertilizer?
I officially began my employment in June of 2003.
How did this job fare out for you in the beginning?
I rose through the ranks quickly with Lush Fertilizer. After only 3 months, I was promoted to a full-time position as product development engineer.
What were some products you worked on as lead product manager?
The biggest assignment I got with the company was developing DRUFO.
What is DRUFO?
DRUFO is a patented bonding agent that Lush developed to keep its fertilizer products preserved and intact.
What was the value of DRUFO to Lush fertilizer?
DRUFO increased the longevity and texture of the products and set them apart from their competitors.
What was your task in this assignment?
I was tasked with researching one of the chemical compounds that compromised DRUFO.
Okay, Your Honor, do you have a clean and unmarked copy of Exhibit 3?
I do.
And witness, do you have a clean and unmarked copy of Exhibit 3?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Mr. Durst, what is this document?
This is a study that I found from England that shows the effects of DRUFO in rats.
Did you ever, when did you find this document?
I found it from a study in England.
But like time period wise, when did you find it? While you were working at Lush?
I found it while I was working at Lush Fertilizer.
Did you ever document this finding in any scientific notebook?
Yes, I documented it in my lab notebook.
Okay. And what type of research did you write in this notebook?
It was all the research that we did surrounding the safety of DRUFO.
Okay. Your Honor, may I put Exhibit 3 into evidence?
You're offering it? Okay.
Yes.
Is there any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you. 3 is in evidence. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Durst, can you refer to Exhibit 3 and read the study title on the top of the page?
Lifespan exposure to low doses of C3NO9P beginning during early life increases cancer effects in rats.
Could you please read the first paragraph of the conclusion column?
The results of this carcinogenicity bioassay, our first long-term carcinogenicity bioassay on C3NO9P, demonstrate C3NO9P's potential carcinogenicity at a dose level close to normal monthly intake for humans in occupations involving frequent, unprotected exposure to commercial fertilizers. Furthermore, the study demonstrates that when lifespan exposure to C3NO9P begins during early life, its carcinogenic effects are increased.
Thank you, Mr. Durst. What was your time frame involvement with DRUFO at Lush Fertilizer?
DRUFO was developed over the course of a couple years. This company started developing it in 2001. When I joined the company in 2003, Lush was testing the safety of the bonding agent.
Were there any further studies conducted on this compound after these preliminary findings?
Yes, that following September, we conducted an in-house study to ascertain whether DRUFO was potentially carcinogenic in humans.
When was the first study concluded?
December of 2006.
Was your research involving the bonding agent ever mentioned in the final conclusion?
No, it was not.
Okay. Were there any findings from your research team that sparked interest or concern?
Yes, actually. One scientist expressed concern that not only may DRUFO contain a carcinogen, but her analysis found that it was perhaps linked to non-Hodgkin lymphoma.
Okay. Did you notify any superiors about your concerns or any other concerning findings?
Yes, Jerry Langley and an upper echelon manager, Alex Monroe, were actually present in the meeting where the scientist expressed her concerns.
So, Mr. Durst, at this point in your research as the lead product manager, were you concerned with the safety of DRUFO?
I was, yes.
Was this concern, was Jerry Langley responsible for publishing the final conclusion with DRUFO?
Yes, she was.
And was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma ever mentioned anywhere in this final report?
No, it was not.
Did it address carcinogens?
No, no, the report did not expressly address carcinogens. It recommended baking Drufo as part of the production process to eliminate the possibility Drufo could be carcinogenic.
Okay. How did you feel about this final report?
I thought that it was very misleading, and it was clear that some of the data was left out of the final report, and the labeling was a deliberate attempt to fit the data obtained into the narrative desired by upper management.
Were there any other studies conducted on the safety of Drufo?
Not at Lush, no.
What happened after this final review was put out?
Can you repeat the question?
After this final review was published, what happened to you?
My annual performance reviews started to drop. My quality of work was criticized, and I was accused of not pulling my weight. I was put on probationary status with the company.
Despite never seeing any of these sentiments before in your reviews?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so Mr. Durst, as a former manager of Lush Fertilizer and oversaw the research into Drufo safety, do you believe Lush Fertilizer and Blake Doncourt were accurate and sufficient in their safety study on Drufo?
No, I do not believe that. Not only did they not conduct enough research into Drufo safety, but they attempted to hide the truth that they did find.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Durst or Mrs. Durst, I'm just going to ask you a few questions. A simple yes or no would suffice. So, starting off with your relationship with Mr. Doncourt, when you left Lush, you knowingly went to Doncourt's biggest competitor, Terrace Greenery Inc. Is that correct?
Yes.
And this was because you didn't like how it went down between you and Mr. Doncourt. Is that correct?
Yes.
When starting out at Lush, you signed the agreement, which included a non-compete agreement as well as a non-disclosure agreement.
The non-disclosure agreement actually was taken to court, and Terrace Greenery and Lush Fertilizer had made a settlement on how that would be handled when I joined Terrace Greenery.
But you did sign the non-compete agreement when starting out at Lush, isn't that correct?
Yes, I did.
And wouldn't you agree that this is a fairly important document?
Yes.
But when you in your statement, you
Objection relevant?
Thank you.
You want to respond?
Your Honor, this pertains to some prejudice or bias that might be present in the case today.
Okay. Objections overruled. Go ahead, counsel.
So when in your statement, you said that you simply forgot about it after you had started working for the Terry's Greenery. Isn't that correct?
Yes, it is correct.
Okay. So now we're going to move on to the report you received on your desk. You were unsuccessful in finding any studies which explored whether the chemical compound had any adverse effects in humans. Isn't that correct?
I'm sorry, you glitched. Can you please repeat the question?
Of course. You were unsuccessful in finding any studies which explored whether the chemical compound had any adverse effects in humans, correct?
Yes, because no studies on that were conducted at Lush or otherwise.
Thank you. And in the report that went to senior management, you could only speculate the problems and summarize the analysis outlined, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So you have no concrete proof of your speculations or evidence to support it.
We documented everything in our lab notebooks, which should have been in those reports.
But you have no concrete evidence for the speculations that you made, isn't that correct?
We do. We conducted a study on it. The only thing we can speculate is how much of the actual data from the study went into the report that was put out.
Wasn't the article that you looked at for rats, not humans, though? Isn't that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you also received a copy of the study report on your desk about the analysis on Drufo, isn't that correct?
Yes.
And nowhere on that report was non-Hodgkin lymphoma specifically addressed, correct?
Yes.
Okay, now moving on to the research that was carried out. You didn't participate in any of the research whatsoever, isn't that correct?
No, I was part of the research team that was on that in-house study conducted by Lush.
Um, 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 even though you were on the research team, did you or did you not have access to all the data analyzed by the various members of the research and development team?
Yes, I did. But I had no control over what the managers put into the conclusion of the report.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any redirect for this witness?
None. Thank you.
All right, this witness is excused. Thank you, Carson Durst. Do you want to call your next witness, please, plaintiffs?
Yes, Your Honor. I call Dakota Weirs to the stand.
I'll just remind you, Dakota Weirs, that you're still under oath.
Could you please
Go
state
ahead,
your
counsel.
full name and spell the last for the court, Dakota Weirs?
Dakota Weirs, Weirs.
Thank you, Ms. Weirs. Can you tell the court why you're here today?
I'm here to sue Lush Fertilizer for using Drufo in their products.
What is your current occupation?
I'm currently unemployed.
Have you had a previous occupation?
Yes, I was a landscaping technician at Haven Landscaping.
How long did you work for Haven Landscaping?
Since I was about 14 years old.
And how old are you now?
I'm 20 years old.
What were your responsibilities at Haven's?
Well, because I was too young to operate the machinery, my work included spreading seed and fertilizers.
And what kind of materials and chemicals did you work with?
I worked with various fertilizers, including Lush Fertilizer.
While working with these, were you advised to wear long sleeves, pants, and gloves?
Yes, my boss recommended that we wear long sleeves and long pants, but it was often too hot to wear such.
Did any of your colleagues who used Lush fertilizer follow these safety precautions?
No, they also felt it was too hot.
Were any of your colleagues diagnosed with the same condition that you have?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Do you regret not?
Okay, Mr. Lemon, you froze. You are frozen. Mr. Lemon, you're still frozen. Okay, you have just unfrozen.
My apologies, Your Honor. I'm having
That's all
internet
right.
issues.
It's okay. Go ahead and, but you did freeze. I just wanted to make sure you knew where you were. Go ahead, counsel.
Dakota Weirs, do you regret not wearing protective gear while at Haven's?
Absolutely. My life has just been so different, and if I had known the effects of Drufo, then I would have done things differently.
All right. Okay, you just muted yourself, Mr. Lemon.
Yes.
We can still
sorry,
see and hear
seem to be
you.
having
Sorry.
Some issues.
Okay.
Dakota Weirs, do you regret not wearing protective gear?
I do, definitely.
Did your work lead to your condition?
Yes. Yes, my job at Haven Landscaping led to my condition.
Okay. I'm so sorry. We're not hearing you again. This is kind of the world we're living in for courts right now. So don't let it throw you too much, but you need to ask your question again. We could not hear that one, Mr. Lemon.
Yes, Your Honor. And
There you go.
what condition do you have?
I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Could you further explain what that is and what effect it's had on your life?
So non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is a form of non-hereditary cancer that causes various symptoms, including the swelling of my lymph nodes, fatigue, shortness of breath, chest pain, frequent chills, short-term memory loss. I find myself to bruise easily now. Just the list goes on.
Thank you, Ms. Weirs. Prior to being diagnosed with this condition, what did you do?
Oh, you see, I just led a normal life. I volunteered in my community as often as I could. Now I can barely help around my own house. I had to quit my job at Haven Landscaping. I was in my National Honor Society, and I was passionate about the piano. You see, the piano is just a very sentimental part of my life because my grandfather taught me when I was younger, and I can no longer play the piano due to my cancer. And when I was younger, I just absolutely loved the piano, and I learned it and mastered it, and I even got accepted a full ride scholarship to Juilliard, but all of that was taken from me.
And why won't you be able to attend Juilliard, Ms. Weirs?
I'm unable to complete such a rigorous course with my condition.
And how has this affected you mentally?
Well, my mental and physical health have just deteriorated completely. Just ever since I was diagnosed, I can no longer play the piano, which was just such an important part of my life. And I've lost so much.
Ultimately, what effect has non-Hodgkin lymphoma had in your life?
I fear my life will never be the same again. And I fear for my future.
I'm sorry to hear that, Ms. Weirs. So what is the reason behind your condition?
My condition was caused by Lush fertilizer,
How so?
their use of Drufo.
Mr. Lemon, I think you just froze again.
And
Go ahead. Thank you.
So? How was your condition caused by your work?
I used Lush fertilizer at my landscaping job.
And does Lush fertilizer contain Drufo?
Yes.
What is Drufo?
Drufo is a binding ingredient used in Lush fertilizer.
Your Honor, do you have a clean and unmarked copy of Exhibit 1?
I do.
Ms. Weirs, do you have a clean and unmarked copy of Exhibit 1?
Personal knowledge in regards to Drufo.
Could you repeat that? You cut out.
Sorry, lack of personal knowledge in regards to what Drufo is.
Okay, I apologize. Was that an objection? I didn't hear you either.
Yes, Your Honor, it was.
Okay. Objection.
Lack of personal knowledge in regards to Dakota Weir's knowledge about Drufo.
Okay. What's your response, Mr. Lemon? Okay. We just lost you again. I'm sorry. Try again.
This label, thank you. This label comes directly from Lush Fertilizer, and they know what is in their product.
Your Honor, that's not why I'm objecting. I'm not objecting to Drufo being in the fertilizer. I'm objecting to Dakota knowing how Drufo works.
Okay. I am going to overrule the objection and allow the witness to provide her own lay opinion The jury will weigh that opinion as they choose. Overruled. Go ahead, counsel.
I request permission to show Exhibit 1 to Dakota Weirs.
Permission granted.
Ms. Weirs, could you identify what Exhibit 1 is?
It's a packaging including the ingredients list of Lush fertilizer.
And did you come into contact with this packaging while at Havens?
Yes, I used Lush fertilizer while at Havens.
Your Honor, at this time, we offer Exhibit 1 to evidence. At this time, the authenticity and relevance to this case has been stipulated.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Exhibit 1 is admitted.
Thank you.
Go ahead,
Your Honor.
counsel.
On this label, what do you notice?
Well, all I notice is that there's merely a suggestion to wear protective equipment.
And is there any reason given for this suggestion?
No, there is not.
Could you please read out loud what is under the title Caution, starting on causes and ending on irritation?
Caution causes eye irritation.
So were you under the impression that irritation to the eyes was the only hazard from Drufo and Lush fertilizer?
Yes, that's all the packaging states.
And were there any warnings that elucidate the clear danger of the Drufo used in the process?
No.
If there were warnings, would you have acted differently from how you acted?
Absolutely.
Could you please read out loud the first sentence of the user safety recommendation?
As with any spray fertilizer, utilize protective clothing that covers exposed skin.
It states as with any fertilizer, but does it state anything that shows the clear difference between Lush fertilizer and any fertilizer due to the use of Drufo?
No.
Could you please read out loud the caution part of the label, starting with avoid and ending with clothing?
Caution, avoid contact with eyes of clothing.
What does this tell you?
To be honest, I'm a bit confused as to what it's asking me.
So, Lush fertilizer did in any way, shape, or form advise you of the dangers of receiving cancer from Drufo?
No, they did not, and that's why I'm here today.
Could you also read right under the logo?
For use on lawn, turf, and weed control.
Does it specify that you must use this product outdoors?
No.
You're muted. Okay. Can't hear you. Try again. Still muted and frozen, Mr. Lemon. Go ahead.
Does it specify anywhere on the label that Drufo must be used outdoors?
No.
So according to Lush fertilizer, would there have been any issue with you using the product indoors?
I wouldn't see why not.
Your Honor, may I approach the bench? My apologies, we are online, Your Honor. Do you have a clean and unmarked copy of Exhibit 2, Your Honor?
I do. Thank you.
Do you have a clean and unmarked copy of Exhibit 2, Ms. Weirs?
Yes, I do.
I request permission to show Exhibit 2 to Dakota Weirs.
Granted.
Ms. Weirs, could you please identify what Exhibit 2 is?
It is the French ingredients list of Lush fertilizer translated into English.
Okay. So, Mr. Lemon, I'm going to make a suggestion. We can't hear you. Why don't you turn off your camera and just turn on your audio? And let's see if that works. I apologize. Go ahead, sir.
Your Honor.
Now you're frozen again. I'm so sorry. Do you want to ask that again, sir? So, Mr. Lemon, you're frozen again.
Your Honor, would you mind if my co-counsel switched computers as there are some significant issues happening on my co-counsel's computer?
Absolutely. Switch computers is good.
Thank you so much, Your Honor.
Your Honor,
Go ahead, Mr. Lemon.
Your Honor, at this time, we offer Exhibit 2 into evidence. The authenticity of this exhibit has already been stipulated.
So admitted. Go ahead, sir.
Ms. Weirs, what is this?
It is the French ingredients list of blush fertilizer translated into English.
Ms. Weirs, compared to Exhibit 1, in the ingredients of Lush fertilizer, is there a difference between the one used in the United States and the one used in France?
Yes, there's no Drufo.
Why is this?
Due to the risks that Drufo holds.
What other countries have outlawed the use of Drufo and Lush fertilizer?
I've learned that France, Haiti, Congo, Liberia, and Canada all have banned Drufo.
Is this for the same reason that France does not use it?
Okay, Ms. Weirs, we need you to speak up a bit.
Yes.
Thank you.
Were you warned of the dangers before you made your choice not to wear protective equipment?
No, I was not.
Thank you, Ms. Weirs. No more questions, Your Honor.
Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I had an objection to a previous question surrounding Drufo's knowledge about, surrounding Dakota's knowledge regarding the reason why countries ban Drufo or Lush fertilizer.
Okay, so since you weren't able to get your objection in time, I'm going to just ask you to address your cross-examination of her to those issues. Thank you, counsel. Were you done, Mr. Lemon?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, all right. Ms. Pulido, if you would, please, it's your turn. Cross-examination, you're muted, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Hello, Ms. Weirs. It's nice to meet you. I'm going to be asking you a couple of questions today. Please feel free to answer for yes or no answer. You worked at Haven Fertilizer for about 4 years, is that correct?
Haven Landscaping.
Sorry, Haven Landscaping.
Since I was about 14 years old.
You worked there for about 4 years?
Since I was about 14 years old.
Okay, Ms. Weirs, you're going to need to speak up. We can't hear you, please.
My apologies. I've worked there since I was about 14 years old.
So, to clarify, you worked there for about 4 years?
Well, since I was about 14.
During this period of time, you worked with a variety of fertilizers?
Yes, that is correct.
And fertilizers tend to be a danger when ingested in any manner. Is that correct?
Well, yes, they are chemicals.
So because of that, companies have to take precautions against any potential dangers. Is that correct?
Yes, there's often warning labels on the packaging.
And at Haven Landscaping, you were required to take such safety precautions.
It was never required. It was only a recommendation by my boss.
Ms. Weirs, Ms. Weirs, do you have access to your witness testimony? Or, Your Honor, do you have access to the witness testimony for Dakota Weirs?
I'm sorry, counsel, are you asking me if I have access to it?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. If you're asking me if I have the witness statements, I do, but they're not in evidence, so I can't review them.
Okay.
Are
Ms.
you-
Weirs,
Go ahead.
Ms. Weirs, do you have access to your witness statement?
Yes, I do.
Do you recognize this witness statement? Sorry, could you repeat that question, please? That answer.
Can't hear you.
Yes.
And did you write this witness statement?
Yes.
At this moment, Your Honor, I would like to admit Dakota Weir's witness statement into evidence.
Objection, Your Honor. If she intend, or if my opposition intends to impeach, the witness must first clarify if they said a supposed lie.
Okay. So
Ms.
the objection is lacks foundation. Can you lay a foundation for the admission of the prior inconsistent statement, counsel?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Weirs stated that she was not required to wear protective gear.
Yes.
And in her witness statement, she stated that her boss did tell her to wear face coverings. In other
Okay.
words, protective gear.
Counsel, she said that in her testimony. She
Um,
said that today in her testimony.
She did, but the difference between told and required are quite big.
Well, so what I am saying is the witness did not make a statement inconsistent with her testimony today. And counsel, ordinarily we'd be doing this conversation at the bench. We can't do it in this context, but the statement of Ms. Weirs, as the court and the jury will recall, was that it was recommended to her, but it wasn't required of her. But her boss did tell her to wear the gear, as I recall her testimony. So the objection is overruled and the statement is not admitted. Go ahead, counsel.
Were you told?
Go ahead.
Thank
Sorry.
you, Your Honor. Sorry. Ms. Weirs, were you told to take safety precautions of certain types of clothes?
My boss often recommended that we wore articles of clothing, long sleeves and long pants, but it was often too hot to do so. But if I had known the dangers of Drufa, then I absolutely would have done things differently.
So you would agree that it is important to follow safety precautions?
Well, with proper warnings that are in place, then yes, but Drufa did not the Lush's packaging did not have the proper warnings that it would cause cancer if such articles of clothing were not worn.
But you also received safety precautions from your boss?
Yes, he recommended that we wore protective equipment. But like I said,
And sorry, you can continue.
But like I said before, it was often too hot and I was unaware of the true dangers of Drufa.
So therefore, you did not follow all safety precautions?
I did not follow the safety recommendations.
In addition, you stated that you love being outside, is that correct?
Yes, I absolutely adore the outdoors, but unfortunately I can't get out as much anymore since I can barely move around my own house.
And you are aware that your boss did tell you to not use chemicals in indoor situations, is that correct?
Well, at my landscaping job, we worked both indoors and outdoors.
But your boss still told you to use them in outdoor situations?
I'm sorry, did you mean specifically the fertilizers?
Yes.
Specifically Lush fertilizer?
Fertilizers in general.
Well, we used multiple chemicals both indoors and outdoors.
In your testimony, you mentioned that Lush did not have any warnings in your witness statement.
Yes, that's correct.
Would you mind taking a look at Exhibit 1? And would you please read the user safety recommendations, starting with as and ending with equipment?
As with any spray fertilizer, utilize protective clothing that covers exposed skin. Use a respirator or N95 mask is recommended. Follow manufacturer's instructions for cleaning and maintenance, personal protective equipment, PPE.
So as it stated, wearing protective clothing and wearing N95 face masks are in fact recommended by Lush Fertilizer.
Yes, they're recommended, but there's no warnings of the long-term effects that their products would have without it.
But they did have a label telling you how to keep yourself safe,
There's a recommendation.
telling you how to keep yourself safe. Is that correct?
Yes, but a safe against what is what they lacked putting in their packaging.
Regardless, you did choose not to follow them.
I did not believe it was necessary since I was unaware of the true dangers of Drufo.
And Dakota, are you completely sure that Lush Fertilizer was the cause of your cancer?
Well, I believe that Drufo was the cause of my cancer.
And why do you believe that?
Well, because Drufo causes cancer, and I recently learned that Lush Fertilizer yet had not informed the public of this on their packaging.
But you are aware that ingredients in fertilizers such as nitrogen are also known to cause cancer.
I'm sorry, that's not in my affidavit. So that's outside of my scope, I would say.
So
I'm sorry, I just don't know how to respond to that. I don't know the effects of nitrogen and all the other ingredients, only Drufo.
So you only researched about Drufo's possible effects and not other fertilizers' possible effects?
Well, I learned that Drufo caused cancer, so.
And where did you learn that from?
I learned it from a newscast that I saw with my father. Someone had leaked the documents about Drufo online.
But you weren't able to verify it. Were you able to verify it for yourself that Drufo does in fact cause cancer?
Well, when I researched, I also discovered that it was banned in France, Haiti, Liberia, Congo, and Canada as well.
But you're not aware of why it was banned?
Well, I believe it was banned because of the risks that are present.
And Dakota, do you still have your scholarship to Juilliard?
I do still have my scholarship, but unfortunately I won't be able to go because I can no longer play the piano.
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Your Honor.
Overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Weirs, but you still have it for up to 2 years, is that correct?
Yes, but unfortunately I cannot play the piano, so I cannot accept the scholarship at this time.
But your doctor has still said that there's a possibility that you can get better.
My doctor said that my condition could go either way, but there's no clear outcome.
But your doctor said that he was hopeful that you could get better?
He said that there's a possibility, yes.
So you still have the possibility of going to Juilliard?
Well, I really don't know. I can't say. I might still have it in a few years, or I might not. I have no clear way of knowing.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
So I need to ask Ms. Timekeeper for Daisy, You just went off screen. Can you tell me, please, how many minutes over time we went?
54 seconds.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, any redirect of this witness, Mr. Lemon?
Yes, Your Honor. Were you under the impression that the only hazard that you could receive from Lush fertilizer was eye irritation?
Yes,
Could you repeat the answer?
yes, that was all that was on the packaging.
And you weighed the consequences of eye irritation and decided not to wear clothes.
I'm sorry, can you please rephrase that?
And you yourself weighed the consequences of eye irritation and decided not to follow the safety recommendations that your boss and Lush Fertilizer gave you.
Yes, that is correct.
And had you been aware of the risks, would you have made the same choice?
I would have done things much differently if I had known the true effects of Drufo. It's taken so much from me.
No more questions, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Weirs. Counsel, does the plaintiff rest? Anybody for the plaintiff?
Yes, Your Honor, the plaintiff rests our case.
Thank you. For the defense, do you want to call your first witness, please?
Hello, Your Honor. I would like to call Blake Johncourt.
All right, Blake Johncourt, you're still under oath. Go ahead, counsel.
Good morning, Ms. Blake Johncourt. Can you please introduce yourself to the court, spelling your last name for the record?
Good afternoon. My name is Blake Doncourt, Doncourt.
And Ms. Johncourt, what do you do for a living?
I am Chief Executive Officer of Lush Fertilizer.
And what do you do as Chief Executive Officer?
I'm responsible for managing the overall operations of Lush Fertilizer. This includes the delegation and directing of agendas, driving profitability, managing the company's organization, structure, and communication with the board.
And how long have you been CEO?
I have been CEO of Lush Fertilizer since 2000.
What steps did you take to build this company to what it is today?
I worked day and night to build up the company. It took years of work and significant expenditure of capital.
Has the success in Lush ever led to any opportunities for your company?
Yes, it led to our company committing to donate 10% of all annual profits to environmental organizations. We have been awarded the prestigious Seal Business Sustainability Award, and I have been nominated by the United Nations for the Champion of the Earth Award.
And has Lush ever been brought up on any wrongdoings and not doing something right for the environment?
We have not.
And just for clarification, has Lush ever been brought up in charges of doing anything bad for the environment?
We have not.
Have you ever been brought up to court for doing anything inappropriate or having any inappropriate behavior at Lush?
This is our first instance of something like this happening.
What do you attribute to the reason why people haven't felt the need to bring you to court till today?
We put
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
Sustained. Do you want to ask another question, counsel?
Yes. What are some reasons why you have not been in court yet?
Well, we put safety recommendation labels on all of our products.
And I would like you to direct your eyes to what has already been put into evidence as Exhibit 1. What is it that you have in front of you?
It is the label of our flagship product, Lush Fertilizer.
And you keep personal records of this item?
Yes, I do. It is part of my job as CEO.
Now, earlier you talked about different precautions that are set up within the label. Now, for clarity, for the jury, what stands out to you the most about safety protocols that Lush Fertilizer has taken?
Well, like mentioned before, we recommend the use of a respirator or an N95 facial covering to reduce the risk of inhaling our product, on top of covering all exposed skin to reduce the product getting absorbed through the skin, and washing your hands before and after using the product.
Those are a lot of safety regulations. How did you establish those?
We follow national guidelines. As for any airborne fertilizer, it is recommended that you follow all of these safety precautions. And if something in our product was found to be carcinogenic, we would label that immediately.
And you stated earlier that Lush has not been brought up in any wrongdoing until today. Why are you defending Lush?
Simply because it's my product, and I would never want to see anything bad happen because of use of my product that I helped that I built up. It's simply tragic.
Have there been any studies that have spoken up specifically against Lush fertilizer?
Dr. Casey Rogers did publish a study correlating the use of Drufo to cancers. However, it was never published in a peer-reviewed journal.
And why is it not being published important?
Well, being published in a scientifically peer-reviewed journal means that it has been reviewed by other experts in the field. Because it was not published in this journal.
Objection, Your Honor, outside of scope. Lake Doncourt is not a scientist.
Yes,
Do you
Your
want to
Honor,
respond,
he is
counsel?
Yes, Your Honor, he is not a scientist, but this is his product that he helped develop.
Okay. I'm going to need you to lay further foundation for his statement regarding what is the difference between a peer-reviewed article in a scientific publication versus non-peer-reviewed. I do think that's stepping beyond what a lay person might know, even so. If you want to lay foundation, counsel, for your witness's expertise in that area so he can opine regarding that, you're welcome to, but otherwise the objection sustained.
So you are the CEO of Lush Fertilizer, correct?
Yes, I am.
And you did.
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
Overruled. Counsel, she's going to need a little latitude to lay the foundation. Go ahead, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. You have been part of this company through this whole process of the lawsuit, correct?
I very much have.
And have you been seeing all the reasons why you are in court today?
Yes, Dakota Weirs claims that the use of Drufo in Lush fertilizer is the cause of her terrible illness.
And you do know what carcinogenic means?
Yes, it is a chemical or a substance known to cause cancer in either animals or humans.
And you knowing this information and knowing the information about how your product is used and knowing how it could have possibly caused the plaintiff cancer, you would know and read up on the possible effects that could have had.
Yes, I certainly would have before pushing it to the market.
And over watching your company, you would have seen Dr. Devin Williams creating his studies, correct?
Yes, I would have.
And you looked over those studies several times, didn't you?
Yes.
So you knowing that publishing a study like this, so other scientists in this field could be important, that's correct?
That is correct.
So why is Casey Rogers' study not being published important?
It hasn't been reviewed by other experts in the field in which it links Drufo to cancer.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Cross-examination, Mr. Lemon.
Yes, Your Honor. How involved were you in the creation of the Lush fertilizer label?
Personally, I kept records of all changes and alterations made to the label, including warnings. and ingredients, along
And
with
Miss-
recommendations.
Thank you, Ms. Doncourt. And do you have a clean and unmarked copy of what has previously been labeled as Exhibit 1?
Yes, I do.
Can you identify what this exhibit is?
It is the label on Lush fertilizer.
And you created this label, correct?
Yes.
Did you look over the final product before it was released to the public?
Yes, I did.
Was the line "eye of clothing" mistyped, or "eyes of clothing" mistyped, misprinted, or otherwise mistaken?
May you please repeat your question?
Was the line "eyes of clothing" mistyped, misprinted, or otherwise mistaken?
I'm sorry, where are you finding this?
I am finding it.
It's in the box, ma'am.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. The box. I'm
Right
sure
after.
I can find it. Could you please direct me to where it would be?
Yes,
It's
right after
above
caution.
user safety recommendations. There's a box above that.
Thank you.
So was the line "eye of clothing" mistyped, misprinted, or otherwise mistaken?
I am not seeing where that is. I am sorry.
It is right after caution. It is right after caution causes eye irritation. And then it says avoid contact with eyes of clothing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, it does say that. My apologies.
So was this mistyped, misprinted, or otherwise mistaken?
Yes, it was mistyped.
And this slipped through your gaze before you published this?
Unfortunately, it did.
Another question, moving on. Why didn't you take Carson Durst's claims about Gary Lang seriously?
Well, simply because, like I said earlier, there were no studies directly linking use of Drufo to cancer.
Was the decision to not bake Drufo financially motivated?
Due to the fact that there were no significant studies linking the use of Drufo in a product to cancer, we felt as if we could leave Drufo unbaked.
And would baking it reduce any risk at all of it being carcinogenic?
Yes.
No more questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect? Thank you, counsel. Redirect.
No, Your Honor.
All right, this witness is excused. Thank you. Do you want to call your next witness? Defense, please. Not hearing or seeing anyone yet.
Yes, Your Honor, at this time, we'd like to call Skylar Beers to the stand.
Skylar Rears, you are still under oath. Thank you.
May it please the court?
You can proceed.
Hello, Ms. Weirs. Will you please introduce yourself, spelling your last name for the court?
My name is Skylar Weirs, W-E-I-R-S.
And what do you do for a living, Skylar?
I'm a freelance investigative journalist.
For, where do you work?
The Rationalist.
And what does The Rationalist write about?
It's a magazine that focuses on science education for pseudoscience to encourage readers to ask questions.
And why did you start working at The Rationalist?
I thought real science was important and to stand for what's right.
And why do you think that?
Because I was a person who only assumed anything on the internet was going to be true.
And why do you think you changed?
It's important to research and decide for myself using science and facts whether something is true or not.
So what type of articles do you write about now?
I read a lot of articles mainly about modern agritech, GMOs, commercial agriculture, and stigma surrounding agritech.
How long have you been researching modern agritech?
Deep researching for about a year now, and I'm thoroughly in the subject and know more than about anybody else.
Where do you get your information and statistics from?
I research statistics coming from the United States Department of Agriculture and the National Association of State Departments in Agriculture. I only get my information from the actual source.
Have you written any articles about modern agriculture?
Yes, sensationalized and sometimes untrue stories.
Your Honor, at this time, we author Ms. Weirs as an expert witness in the history of modern agritech under Rule 702 based on their specialized research, knowledge, and experience.
Voir dire or response, counsel?
Yes, a brief voir dire, Your Honor.
You may.
You have no formal education, correct?
Correct.
You have never conducted a study of your own?
I have done my research.
But no study of your own?
Correct.
Okay. No experience working in agritech industry?
Correct.
And you've only been writing for less than a year on these subjects?
Correct.
And the research for your writing, is information and data found by other experts, not yourself, correct?
I use my own facts and research my own things to find the truth.
Okay. And you have no formal expertise in interpreting and validating scientific data?
Correct.
And you have no experience in a scientific field?
Correct.
So you are publishing your layman's interpretation on experts' reports?
No interpretations, just facts that I've researched.
Your Honor, pursuit of Rule 702, at this time, I object the defense's tendering of Skylar Weirs as an expert of agritech due to her lack of expert knowledge retaining specifically the scientific data that her publishing in her writing. While she may be able to attest to the conduct of agritech industry itself, she lacks the scientific expertise to testify to any scientific conclusions. So I ask that it be clarified she is an expert in agritech industry, but not in any scientific aspects in this field.
So, counsel, she was offered as a witness to the history of agritech, and I am instructing the jury that that is the limited area in which the court will allow her to testify pursuant to Rule 702 as an expert in the history of agritech.
Okay.
You may proceed, counsel. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. What do you know about the misinformation spread in modern agriculture companies?
Lots of PR campaigns try to ruin the reputation of other companies to try to get ahead.
And how do these companies go about that?
They will pay millions of dollars. That way people don't use competitors' products regardless of how much good it can actually do.
And what do you know about Drufo?
Drufo is a chemical fertilizer that also doubles as an effective pesticide.
And why is Drufo important?
Because Drufo barely needs to be compared to other fertilizers. While other fertilizers may need to be spread 5 or 6 times a year, Drufo is different and could only get applied once or twice a year, unlike other pesticides.
And why is that significant?
It's better for the environment. Using less product will stop a lot of effects of nitrogen.
And how does nitrogen affect the human body?
It affects the human body because it's linked to cancer, potential birth defects, diabetes, and defects.
So what actions do companies have to take to protect people?
Modern companies have to use warning labels to promote protective gear. And on top of that, companies use these chemicals to take care of their employees to make proper safety precautions.
Could you go into that?
Well, the place where Dakota and I worked, Haven Landscaping, they never reinforced their policies. I know they had them, and I always told Dakota to wear protective gear, but ultimately, Dakota was a child when she started working there. Haven never reinforced their rules, and Dakota didn't have enough foresight to protect themselves.
Thank you for testifying today. Before you go, I'd like to ask you one final question. Why are you testifying?
The spread of misinformation sways our lives a lot. But starting to research and understand DRUFO is the only way to understand the truth. DRUFO is only going to be helpful to the people.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Spears, was your decision to testify based on your current economic status?
No, it was not. I simply just want to show Dakota that just because something that is very, very terrible, and I feel fortunate for my twin, that the truths and facts will back it up.
However, you are struggling financially at the moment due to your gambling problem, correct?
I do.
Ms. Spears, are you aware expert witnesses such as yourself are compensated for testifying?
Correct.
Have you written articles concerning UFOs, anti-vaccinations, the flat earth model, and other conspiracy theories or pseudosciences?
Yes, when I was a lot younger, I was very into that stuff, but now that I've gotten older, I've moved past it.
Do you believe in such things?
I used to when I was younger, but I was a lot younger when I did write that. So now I have developed new ideas.
Okay. So you admit, even then, that you undermined scientific integrity for the sake of financial gain and career furtherment, correct?
Correct.
Would your career would your career reputation benefit if DRUFO was hypothetically proven carcinogenic?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yes. Would your career journaling benefit if DRUFO was hypothetically proven carcinogenic?
No, because I research a lot of things in my career, and this one little thing like DRUFO would not affect it.
Okay. In your witness statement, you call DRUFO an effective pesticide, but you also say pesticides by definition are poison. So would you consider DRUFO as poison?
No, I would consider it as a dangerous chemical, but not as dangerous as other fertilizers.
Okay. I am under the impression that DRUFO is a grass seed product. Is that correct?
Correct.
As far as I understand, grass seed products contain synthetic nitrogen. Is that correct?
Correct.
Synthetic nitrogen has been proven to cause cancer. One of the ingredients in Lush fertilizer is nitrogen. Could the nitrogen from Lush fertilizer, from Lush, be the cause of Dakota Wire's condition?
It could, but it's not on 100%.
And lastly, without any formal education surrounding all topics you decide to write on, are your articles classified as opinion pieces?
No.
Okay, thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Weirs, why do you no longer write articles about conspiracy theories?
I have moved on and I have grown up and I have come to myself to do the research and find the true facts and not just make assumptions for myself.
Ms. Weirs, do other fertilizers contain nitrogen?
Yes.
And why is that dangerous?
Dangerous for the human body, causing things like cancer, but DRUFO is not.
Objection, out of scope for scientific. It's scientific.
Could you clarify for what statement?
You discussed the effect of DRUFO on the human body.
Your Honor, that is within the scope of Ms. Weir's testimony because it is part of the history of modern agritech.
it is outside of the scope of expertise, and to the extent that it is an expert opinion, it is stricken from the record. The jury will ignore that opinion. Go ahead, counsel.
Why do you believe Drufo is better than other fertilizers?
Drufo is better than other fertilizers because other fertilizers are essentially a killer. Drufo is only necessary to protect people.
And why is that?
Because, I'm sorry, could you rephrase it?
Why are other fertilizers, as you said, killers?
Because they have different ingredients besides Drufo that use extra nitrogen, and nitrogen has been bad for the body.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Anything further of this witness? All right. Other defense witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor, we'd like to call Dr. Devin Williams to the stand.
And Dr. Williams, I'll remind you, you're still under oath. Go ahead, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Dr. Williams. Would you please introduce yourself to the court, spelling your last name for the record?
Hello, I am Dr. Devin Williams. That is Williams.
And what do you do for a living, Dr. Williams?
I am the lead toxicologist and researcher at the development labs, and I am also the co-chair of the ethics committee.
Could you explain more about what you do for Lush?
Yes. So Mr. Doncourt wanted me to focus on ensuring that Drufo products were industry leading, environmentally aware, and cost effective. Not only does this benefit us, but it benefits our customers as well.
How long have you been doing this job?
For almost a decade now, and I have led the toxicology labs for about 7.
Could you please tell the court what credentials you have to be qualified for this job?
Yes, my education is from undergrad through PhD, which I earned at the Colorado State University, and from there I went into a post pharma toxicology program, which I took at the University of Utah.
And could you explain more to the court what that is?
Yes, basically it is understanding if a toxin is harmful and if a potential harmful situation were to get out to the public, how to neutralize that if that were to happen.
Do you have any other professional experience in the field of toxicology?
Yes, I have worked at CSU, Denver CU Anschutz Medical Campus Graduate School, and Larimer County Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. These are all areas pertaining to toxicology.
Do you have any toxicology certifications?
Yes, I have earned them from the states of Wyoming, New Mexico, Colorado, and Utah.
Has any of your research been published?
Yes, a few of my research has been published, and most notably would probably be the forensic aspects of poison.
Your Honor, permission to move Dr. Devin Williams as an expert witness in toxicology under Rule 702 based on her specialized education, training, and experience.
Any voir dire?
Yes, Your Honor, a brief voir dire. You, Dr. Rogers, you have degrees in pharmacology and toxicology, correct?
Yes.
And toxicology is the study of poisons, correct?
Yes.
But you do not have any degrees specifically in agriculture, correct?
That is accurate.
And you do not have any specific medical degrees, correct?
That is also accurate.
Your Honor, pursuant to Rule 702, at this time, I tender this witness as an expert in specifically the fields of forensic and clinical toxicology, but not in agricultural or medicinal toxicology.
Okay, so counsel, you're objecting to her being tendered, is that correct, in those other areas?
Yes, Your Honor.
Sorry, you said you tendered her, and I was trying to make sure that it was clear. So you're objecting to her being tendered as it relates to clinical toxicology, is that correct?
I apologize, Your Honor. I am objecting to the witness being tendered in agricultural and medicinal toxicology.
Okay, thank you. So, Ms. Lyons, any further clarifications or response to that clarification?
Would opposing counsel be able to clarify more what they are objecting to for the expert witness, like the agricultural and other part?
Absolutely, counsel. Just entering this witness as an expert in toxicology is too broad, as they do not have any specific degrees in relating to agriculture or medicinal purposes, whereas they do have just general, but they do not have these specific clarifications and requirements for agricultural and medicinal toxicology.
Okay, so the jury will accord to this witness a level of expertise that they understand. And if there's an objection that she goes outside the scope, I'm happy to hear it. Go ahead, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. So Dr. Williams, I'd like to switch your attention to your knowledge on fertilizer and DRUFO specifically. So what is the main focus for fertilizers?
Well, originally the main focus on fertilizers was on the nitrogen fixing chemical process, or better known as a straight fertilizer. But as we moved into this century, we wanted to focus more on a macronutrient and multi-nutrient fertilizer, which mainly focuses on phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, and zinc.
And how has it changed since then, if at all?
Well, when we emerged into this century, the issue of eutrophication emerged, which is basically the buildup of excess nutrients in bodies of water.
Would you be able to break down what that means for the court?
Yes. Basically, when unused nitrates enter the bacteria in the soil, that runs off into our water, our lakes, and our irrigation systems. And because of this, many marine populations are killed off because, again, nitrate pollution does affect a lot of our fish population.
And with your experience at Lush, what did you learn about DRUFO?
I learned that DRUFO binds the ingredients off of the chemicals within itself and the chemicals off of the plants. That way it less washes away into the soil, and it is less that you need to spray, making it less that a customer needs to purchase.
Is DRUFO used in other countries?
No, it is prohibited in other countries.
Do you know why they banned DRUFO?
The EU chose to prohibit DRUFO because the use of fertilizer that reduces nitrates in nature doesn't do so under unrealistic laboratory conditions.
Now I'd like to shift your attention to the study done by Casey Rogers. Are you aware of Dr. Rogers' study showing the dangers of DRUFO?
Yes, I am. However, I believe mine to be more valid.
What makes your study more reliable than Dr. Rogers?
Well, unlike Dr. Rogers, I compared apples to apples, not apples to oranges. And by doing this, I discovered that all the data that we looked at was consistent with users of DRUFO not having an elevated risk of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
What made you draw this conclusion?
Objection, Your Honor. Outside of scope, this witness's job at DRUFO at Lush Fertilizers is to simply analyze statistics. They have never performed a study of their own.
So I need a response to that.
Your Honor, I believe Dr. Williams did perform his own study, and so the conclusion he would draw would be valid.
I'm trying to understand, is this objection unfair extrapolation? Because I'm not remembering whether this witness had a specific statement that she did a study.
Yes, Your Honor, sorry, I misspoke. It is unfair extrapolation, as on line 25, the witness says that they largely oversee work on environmental impacts. They do not perform studies.
Okay, so Ms. Lyons, if you want to respond to unfair extrapolation as it relates to this witness's study.
Since he did oversee it, I believe he does have enough knowledge to draw a conclusion from it.
Okay, So you're talking about the fertilizer study?
Are you speaking to me, Your Honor?
I apologize. I'm speaking to Ms. Lyons. I'm trying to figure out what study was authored by this witness. Doctor, can you tell us what study you authored?
Yes, I did my own study looking at the exposure from farm laborers and gardeners.
In addition to that, Your Honor, it should be on page 45. What is it? Line 99, Dr. Rogers' study. It talks about Dr. Rogers' study and then as well as his own that Dr. Williams did. And then on page 44, it goes further into that study.
Okay. Can you tell me where? Because if unfair extrapolation is wrongfully claimed, then the jury needs to take that into account.
So on page 4593, it says, in other words, all the data we looked at consistent with users of fertilizer with Drufo not having an elevated risk of non-Hodgkin lymphoma compared to users of other fertilizers. And then it goes further on to explain Dr. Rogers' study on line 99 with Dr. Rogers' study purportedly looked at exposure to Drufo from farm laborers versus casual gardeners versus people who did.
Okay, so I am understanding Ms. Camperos' objection to be that reviewing data is not the same as doing a study. Is that correct?
Absolutely, Your Honor. This witness did not perform their own study, only reviewed the data of others.
Okay, unfair extrapolation is sustained. Go ahead, counsel.
Based on, or Dr. Williams, based on the information that you received or that you looked at through Dr. Rogers' study, as well as the studies that you evaluated, did you feel that Dr. Rogers' study was valid?
No, I did not.
In your expert opinion, what would a valid study need to consist of?
A valid study needs to look at farm laborers who use Drufo, to farm laborers who use other fertilizers, and to farm laborers who use a fertilizer without any Drufo products.
What would this mean for Dr. Rogers' study?
Well, if what I said is true, it would mean that the people that Dr. Rogers had looked at had just coincidentally had a higher incidence of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma with no connection to Drufo.
Did you notice anything else about Dr. Rogers' study?
Yes, I noticed that his study had not been replicated and more importantly, has not been peer reviewed.
Any other final words on Rogers' study?
Yes, the history of science is filled with studies that can't be duplicated, but that's because sometimes it could be a fluke. Other times it could be because the person who is directing the study has financial bias. And all researchers do have financial bias, but it seems that Dr. Rogers has a greater financial bias than most, as he's carving himself to be a niche expert witness and has more of a reason for bias to carry throughout his study.
Thank you, Dr. Williams, and thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
All right, cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Williams, you are aware that Drufo is banned in the EU, correct?
I am.
And you are aware that Lush is currently contesting that ban?
Yes.
And to the best of your knowledge, the effect of this lawsuit could impact that decision, correct?
Yes.
Dr. Williams, you are an employee at Lush, yes?
Yes.
So the decision made today will affect your employer, yes?
Yes.
And by extension, a source of revenue for you, correct?
Yes, but however, I am speaking out because I believe that Lush they believe in the environment, which is the main reason that I worked for Lush in the first place.
Yes or no will suffice. You were brought here today by your employer to prove they weren't negligent, correct?
Yes.
Once again, a yes or no will suffice. So to clarify, you were brought here by an employer who writes your paycheck to prove their innocence?
Objection asked and answered.
Overruled. She has her on cross. Go
Yes.
ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers, or Williams, I apologize. As an employee at Lush, can you guarantee that there is less risk for using Drufo than other fertilizers?
I cannot guarantee that there's always risk in any fertilizer that you take. I cannot guarantee that there's going to be less risk with whatever fertilizer you choose to go with.
A yes or no will suffice. So there is no way to guarantee that Drufo did not cause the plaintiff's condition.
There is no way to guarantee that with any fertilizer now.
And once again, a yes or no will suffice. In your expert opinion, any risk for fertilizer should be properly warned against, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. No further questions.
Okay. Counsel, in the future, if the witness goes beyond the parameters, you can ask the court to correct them, but you shouldn't be constantly berating the witness. All right?
I apologize, Your Honor.
Redirect. That's okay. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. So, Dr. Williams, in your own words, how would you describe your customer's success?
Well, I believe that I define customer success, and I believe that Lush personally defines customer success as ensuring the safety of our customers and ensuring that they know how to use our products safely. And on top of that, we want to eliminate eutrophication from the very beginning, which is the whole reason that Drufo was created in the first place, which was to eliminate nitrate pollution. And on top of that, I believe that we are in a very environmentally aware company, which is, again, one of our customers. What was the word that you used? Our customers' safety.
And even though you were asked to postulate on broader outcomes, would you say this impacted your data collection and customer success?
No, not at all. That is purely the nature of science in the first place, especially with an industry that supports agricultural food systems. The data that I studied was broad, but this does not make it any less important for the research that we did.
Thank you. No further questions.
So, based on the breadth of that redirect, is there any recross?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. Any doctor, you are excused. Any further witnesses for the defense?
No, Your Honor. The defense rests.
All right. Are you all ready to proceed with closings? If I can see who's going to do closings, please.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so Ms. Hayes, because you have the burden of proof, you will go first, but you can reserve some time. Is that what your intent is?
Yeah.
To respond? All right. Whenever you're ready,
Okay.
Ms. Hayes.
Okay. The defendant manufactured a fertilizer product containing a chemical compound known as Drufo. This is the first instruction by the jury. And this first instruction has been verified by both parties and is an undisputable fact within this case. Lush Fertilizer did in fact manufacture and sell a product that contained the chemical compound Drufo. The second instruction entailed the defendant was negligent by failing to exercise reasonable care to prevent the product from creating a reasonable risk of harm to persons who might reasonably be expected to use the product in a manner of the defendant might have reasonably been expected to. Lush Fertilizer inadequately labeled their fertilizer containing Drufo and failed to exercise care towards consumers of this product. Dakota Weir's testimony proves of Lush Fertilizer's negligence, and Exhibit 1 proves a Lush Fertilizer's negligence with their confusing, poorly worded, and suggestive warning. She also described in her testimony how if she would have known the consequences of Jurfo, which includes non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and cancer, she would have absolutely done things differently and worn protective clothing at all times. Lush's warning never detailed any effects Jurfo, or never detailed the effects of Jurfo and other ingredients could have had on consumers besides irritation of eyes. And additionally, Carson Durst's testimony proved that Lush was aware of these possible dangers. He described how management was knowledgeable of 2 different studies, one being an in-house study and the other being external, that proved Jurfo contained very possible carcinogenic properties. Just the mere fact they launched the safety study on Jurfo is enough to prove that Lush was well aware of the possible harm these products could cause. Furthermore, on the label, there was never any clear clarification discussing the very possible connection between the ingredients and their carcinogenic properties. The plaintiff has proven that her unbiased account and testimony of Lush Fertilizer did show clear signs of negligence with the labels and that inevitably put consumers at risk. So therefore, we find this second instruction overwhelmingly fulfilled today by the preponderance of evidence. The third instruction, the plaintiff was one of those persons defendant should reasonably have expected to use this product. Within the truth of Dakota Wire's testimony, we can clearly see that Jurfo was supplied to her with the intention of industrial use in order to perform her long-time yard work job. Evidence discussed that Dr. Casey Rogers' testimony proved Lush Fertilizer was only probable cause of the plaintiff's condition. Additionally, Dr. Rogers also disproved the defense's narrative that Mrs. Wire's condition could have been caused by another product because the lawn pesticides are actively created with Jurfo, do not exhibit these same carcinogenic properties. Therefore, by the lengthy preponderance of evidence, the plaintiff fulfills his requirements in addition to the negligence of the faulty label warnings. Fourthly, the plaintiff had damages that were caused by the defendant's negligence while the product was being used in a manner the defendant could reasonably have expected. Due to this negligence of the defendant, the plaintiff is suffering from damages that could have inevitably been prevented. Dr. Casey Rogers herself proclaimed that a reasonable worker would not wear a mask while using the fertilizer. Furthermore, owner of Lush Fertilizer himself, Blake Doncourt, admitted in his witness review that they did bake their products due to financial reasons. This just goes to show that safety of consumers and employees at Lush Fertilizer is not their top priority. Additionally, Mr. Doncourt has admitted that there was any valid scientific studies indicating a risk within their products. They would have put warning labels on the package immediately. Was a concern from employees and 2 other studies discussed in Carson Durst's testimony not enough? And therefore, by the preponderance of evidence, the plaintiff satisfies all 4 statements assessing the discussion of defendant was negligent. Thank you.
All right. Can I see the timekeeper for Daffodil? How much time is left, please, for any rebuttal that might be Daffodil? Timekeeper, is there any time left? Mr. or Ms. Kanuju, thank you. Sorry, I can't see you.
Sorry.
Yes, how much time?
There is a minute 30 left.
Okay, because you posted 1 minute. So, okay. So there's 30 seconds or a minute 30 seconds,
minute,
please.
30.
Okay. All right.
Wait,
so
no,
Ms.
30
Hayes,
seconds, sorry.
30 seconds. So Ms. Hayes, you'll have 30 seconds. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And I apologize. Was it Ms. Pluto who was coming on? Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Lyons. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court. Your Honor, members of the jury and opposing counsel, my name is Kara Lyons, and my co-counsel and I represent Lush Fertilizer. You have heard many witnesses testify, but one theme should have been shown again and again throughout the case, which is that Lush Fertilizer took the correct precautions to ensure the safety of their customers and did not willfully ignore the studies that revealed its dangers. Beginning with Blake Doncourt, You heard that as CEO of Lush, it wasn't all about the money. He cared for his customers, his workers, and the environment. Mr. Doncourt has received many awards for his humanitarian work, charity work, and work with other environmental causes. Mr. Doncourt wanted to use Drufo because this improvement to the fertilizer would improve the environment. He also followed the guidelines step by step to ensure the fertilizer was safe for his customers. He did, in fact, put a label on the packaging and provided the risks that went along with using the fertilizer. Moving on to Skylar Weirs, who is committed to researching Drufo, findings that Drufo is ultimately a better choice than other fertilizers. Because of its bonding agents, it will only need to be used 1 to 2 times more or less than other fertilizer. This will lead to less nitrogen use, meaning a smaller environmental impact and especially leading to minimal health risks like cancer. Finishing on the defense side is Dr. Devin Williams, an expert in toxicology, an expert who has done countless research on fertilizer, Drufo, and how these things affect the plants, animals, and people. Unlike Dr. Casey Rogers, Williams actually compared like people and limited the amount of outside variables that could have affected the outcomes. Then we move on to the plaintiff, Dakota Weirs. It was unfortunate that he got non-Hodgkin lymphoma, but Lush is not responsible for this. Weirs was given the guidelines to make sure he was safe with the fertilizer and able to keep using it. But unfortunately, he took those guidelines with a grain of salt. She deliberately did not wear the gloves, long sleeve shirts, and pants when utilizing the fertilizer, which could have increased the chance of developing cancer. She claimed it was too hot to wear them. She claims that if she had known the effects, then she would have acted differently. But why would she not take the proper precautions that not only Lush set in place, but also her boss set in the first place? Weirs also used a variety of fertilizers, so who's to say one of those didn't cause non-Hodgkin lymphoma to develop? Carson Durst, who got lucky with landing the job at Lush in the first place, claims he knows about Drufo and seeing reports that Drufo was harmful. The copy of the study reports he received on his desk had non-Hodgkin lymphoma nowhere on it. Not only that, but after he left Lush Fertilizer and having signed a non-compete and a non-disclosure when he first started out at Lush, he knowingly went to the competitor of Lush, Terra Greenery, to work for them, just to spite and get back at Mr. Doncourt because he felt betrayed. He then pleaded ignorance when those documents were resurfaced and prevented him from working for Terra's Greenery. Do we really expect to believe that Mr. Durst could simply forget about important document coincidentally at the time he wanted to leave Lush? Lastly, Dr. Casey Rogers, his study was carried out very poorly. He didn't compare like people in similar environments like Dr. Williams did, which left all sorts of room for error and false conclusions. Going further, his experiment wasn't even replicated. Like all experiments, scientists replicate them over and over again to see if the results are consistent and if their hypothesis is true or not. They do this to make sure their initial results were not purely just a fluke, and Dr. Rogers did not do this. The plaintiff would like you to believe that Lush was the cause of his misfortune and fails to take any of the blame on his part, like not taking the proper precautions. Lush did their part. They labeled their fertilizer with warnings, which Dakota Weirs was aware of or should have been aware of and deliberately ignored them. From what was heard today, there isn't even concrete proof that Drufo is the fertilizer is the cause of non-Hodgkin lymphoma. Without that proof, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, your decision is quite simple. Lush Fertilizer did not willfully ignore studies that reveal the dangers and it is not their fault. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Hayes, your 30 seconds.
Okay. Lush Fertilizer had many opportunities to exempt themselves from the liability toward Dakota Wire's illness, but they didn't. They had every opportunity to have more detailed labels on the side of their products, consult with their concerned employees, launch additional studies to solidify their understandings of Drufo, or even just bake the compound for further security, but they didn't. Dakota didn't wear this protective gear because it's proved by the doctor that it was not essential, and she didn't know the risk of the cancer. So sadly enough, the defense did cause the plaintiff's illness and that they should be held reliable and responsible due to their negligence. Thank you.
All right. You guys were fabulous. So I'm going to ask, can the jury please turn on your cameras to let us know that you're going to start scoring? Okay, but you can mute yourselves because you should just start scoring. And I'm going to give you guys feedback. Everybody else, please turn your cameras on so I can see you. Before we got started, we were having a conversation about how wonderful and amazing this competition always is. Horribly enough, I've been doing this for 38 years since I graduated from law school. The reason I do it every year, and I'm doing it again tomorrow morning in Arapahoe County, is because you all are often better lawyers than the ones that we see who actually have a license to practice law. And it's something we judges always giggle about, but it's true that you all do such a wonderful job preparing and all that sort of thing. And so I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about how you can improve your presentation, but please understand that what I'm going to be talking about is only about performance. I wouldn't expect, unless you are a lawyer with years and years and years of experience, that you would know these things particularly. So Mr. Lemon did a great job of not getting rattled when he could have been really, really rattled. So bravo. You did a great job with your presentation. And so the technical difficulties right now for judges in every circumstance are just a fact of life, have been, it's challenging, okay? And jurors all have that experience as well with technology. So you were very chill. I was very impressed with that. Since Ms. Cambris is on your screen, I'm just going to say your cross was killer. The only thing I would caution you about, and a few other folks, is the and. Be careful of the and. When I had a transcript that I had to read of my own examination of a witness, every time it was an and boy, that teaches you to get rid of and. But it's hard. It's really hard because you always want to have an or an and or something else. So just be aware of that. But your cross was fabulous. You really, really did a great job. The only reason I said something about asking the witness not to go outside of yes or no is that if you do it too many times, it becomes, people get angry at you as the lawyer. The jury might find it irritating. So you look at the judge and you say, Judge, can you please instruct the witness only to answer the question they've been asked? So, but your questions were just fabulous. Let's see, Ms. Polito, whose name I miserably mispronounced. You did a wonderful job of being very, very specific about the information you were trying to extract from the witnesses, even when the objections were knocking you off course. So great job on that. Let's see. Blake Doncourt, you win the prize for Best Actor. You love this company. You were great. You knew your stuff. You really, really stuck to the, you really did a great job of acting. Yes. So Ms. Polito, what I have here in my notes is excellent recovery. This can be very hard, and getting back on track can be very tough. And I apologize, Ms. Yakubovich, you are tenacious. I would caution all of you doing statements opening or closing. We could tell when you were reading, so be careful of that. But you had obviously rehearsed your opening statement many times, and you knew it. I think you only looked at your prepared notes, your speech, as sort of a crutch, and it was a little bit distracting. Everybody who was reading, we could tell you were reading. So be careful about that. But you really, really knew it. You knew it cold. So great job. Let's see, Ms. Lyons. And when the scorekeepers are done, I don't want to delay things, but holler when you're ready to start giving your comments. Let's see, who was I looking at? Ms. Lyons, your closing was fabulous. Really, really great. It was pretty clear to me from your closing why you made certain, why you asked certain questions in your direct examination. That was really cool. That's kind of the puzzle that lawyers need to sort of put together. So that was great. Let's see. Boy, Lexi, Ms. Williamson, you threw in an awful lot of opinion that really shouldn't have been in there. So, okay. But you did a great job of doing your job as a witness to get all that in there. So you did a good job of giving a lot of opinion that was way outside your expertise. And that's kind of what your witness is supposed to do. So good job. Let's see. Addison, did I? Oh yeah. So I also have down here good cross. Carson Durst, also an excellent witness, did a great job. Dr. Rogers, very scholarly. Same thing with, where is she? Dr. Williams. You both, I apologize. I didn't remember whether Dr. Williams did a study or not. Be very careful. A review of someone else's research is not a study that you're publishing yourself. But you did, Dr. Williams, do a great job of attacking the peer review piece. So that was great. Let's see. So Ms. Zog said she's completed her scoring. Other folks, let me know when you have, let's see, Ms. Hayes, excellent direct, excellent direct. What I would suggest to you, if you're ever crossing the witness again, start with their lack of expertise rather than finishing with it, okay? You want that right up front and center. You know, everything you testified about was outside of your expertise, wasn't it? You did do that at the end, but if you had done it at the beginning, then everything that witness might have said after that might have been significantly devalued, okay? So that would be my suggestion. You definitely threw it in there, but it was at the end instead of the beginning. Was there anybody who I missed? Carson Durst, boy, you are very calm. You also were able to get out so much information that was kind of clearly outside of your expertise. I was very impressed by how you did that. You obviously knew your witness statement cold. So that was very impressive. You weren't rattled at all by anything. Again, great job. All of you were so incredibly well prepared. Did I miss anyone? Rick, Mr. Lemon, you did an incredible job of the label, of going after the label. but you could have thrown in at the very end. So you really weren't careful about that label, were you? You were just short of that. So that could have punched your last point in there. Your cross was excellent. So did I talk to Ms. Cambros about what an amazing cross there was? Yeah, okay. Is that everyone? Is everyone done with scoring? Ms. Coombe, are you done?
Yes, I am, Your Honor.
Oh, okay, sorry. It was in the
sorry.
chat. So I'm going to let the scoring panelists give their comments. Ms. Coombe, since you're unmuted, why don't you go first?
Okay, thanks, Judge. I agree with everything that Judge Arkin said. Everyone did such an amazing job. I'm not going to go individually because I believe Judge Arkin really thoroughly covered what all of your strengths were, but I just want to reiterate that I was incredibly impressed. And I also agree that y'all are all better than many, many attorneys that I have also seen in court. And so kudos. I hope that you all are considering a career in law because you'll do really well. A piece of feedback that I didn't hear Judge Arkin give, so forgive me if I missed it, is make sure you make people answer your question on cross. I know I caught a couple of times where someone would try to nail them down, and the response was, instead of a yes or a no, was this long diatribe of an answer. And a really good tactic is to let them finish and then say, so that's a yes. And really make sure that they're answering your question. It really highlights that they're trying to avoid the bad facts. Let's see. I thought y'all also did such an amazing job, especially considering that this was virtual. I've been volunteering at these for many, many years, and this is the first one that I've done virtual. And I agree, no one got rattled, even when there were technical difficulties. And you guys had such amazing composure. You all really did truly have the composure of a true professional. So kudos to that. And then the last thing I would say is going back to the reading thing. Judge Arkin touched on this. I just also wanted to touch on it. Even if you are reading, pretend you're not. Read it as if you're speaking it. And so, because I can understand not being able to completely get off of notes. That happens sometimes. Even as an experienced attorney, sometimes I just had to use my notes, but you don't want them to know you're reading it. And so look at what it is that you're going to say, but deliver it as if you're having that thought right then, rather than reading it off the paper. So it doesn't sound so speechy. So that's all of my feedback. Everyone did an excellent job. So kudos.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kuma. And I wanted to say, Ms. Coulard, I had my notes down here, but I couldn't find them. Your soft voice was hard for this format, but it actually matched your character. So, it was a positive and a negative at the same time. Unfortunately, I mean, you played the victim very well. It was just a little difficult for responses to questions. So, but you did a great job being the poor plaintiff. Ms. Hendon?
Good afternoon. I certainly would echo what everybody else has said, that you all did an incredible, wonderful job, and we're definitely very impressive. One thing that really got me was when you guys were throwing out CRE 702. And there are still a lot of attorneys that don't really understand 702 out there. So kudos to you guys. Again, I'll just go ahead and pick out some of the stuff that Alicia and Judge Arkin haven't covered, or at least mentioned. There are two things, is that one, I guess Alicia did cover as far as trying to get them to answer your question. On the flip side, being a witness is also listening to the question. Because in this particular competition, there's two trains of thought. One is to talk when you're trying to get away from the question. The other thought is to just be short, like no, yes, I don't know, I don't recall. One of the things, for example, I think there was a question, you're here testifying due to your economic status, correct? And the answer was, no, I'm here because blah, 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 blah. What you could do is make the attorney work by saying no. And then the attorney has to come back and start pulling that information out of you. And what that does, it's twofold. One, it shows you know, all of us in the scoring panel how what the skills are of the attorney as far as being able to pull that out of the witness, along with the witness and how they're able to dodge. Eventually, just because this is a competition, everybody gets narrowed in the end. I really liked the directs. I thought all the directs were really good. The best thing about it was when the attorney and the witness were making it more of a conversation. Like, tell me about such and such. And it would just naturally flow. And when that happens, it's very easy to follow the story, because that's the main thing that you're doing here, is you're telling your client's story. And that goes back to the whole thing of getting away from reading. I mean, pretend you're telling a story to a child, like you're reading a bedtime story. I know that seems simple, but really that's what you're doing, is you're trying to get across your story and why the jury should believe you. But again, I would say, good job, everybody. As far as any specifics, one thing on Exhibit 3, I was waiting for a hearsay objection on that one, just because there's nobody that could actually state foundation on that. But again, good job.
Last but not least, Ms. Zog. Thank you so much, Ms. Herndon. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Congratulations to everyone. You guys did a wonderful, wonderful job. I would echo the comments that I've already made, and I just have a couple of things that I wanted to highlight. It was very obvious that you all knew your roles, particularly on cross, both as witnesses and as attorneys. And so you should feel confident that you can put down your notes, because you do know your material. So I just wanted to note that, because it's very clear that you guys do know your material for sure. And I also just wanted, if I were you, I'd use the opportunity to learn from each other, from the different groups and how they handled things differently. I think that's a really important skill, to start to notice how things might be handled differently and pick up on that. So one thing in particular I noticed was you both handled timekeeping differently, and you might have a discussion in your team. Is that how you want to handle it? Do you want to change it going forward? Whatnot. So just something to, learn from each other. So, but I thought everybody did a phenomenal job.
So I think, are we ready to go?
Yes, that would be fine.
Ms. Rogers?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Rogers, thank you so much also for volunteering. All of you, if you are thinking about a career in law, please be in touch with the folks who are running this competition, because there are a lot of us out there who would be happy to mentor you going forward if that is something that's interesting for you. I'm just going to suggest that you notify the folks who are running this competition, and they can get the messages. There's a long list of judges and lawyers who are interested in mentoring attorneys, young people who are interested in this path. Okay, so keep that in mind. Lovely to see you all today. Thank you again so much. Yay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for judging.
Thank you.
Take care.